get into the subject.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Villardo. We have an incredible guest here today who's an investor, a product leader, a two-time venture-backed founder, CEO and founder of Tradeway, Josh Ogundu. Thank you so much for having us today. I practiced that a few times before this take. Can't wait to hear his stories. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. Shout out to coming over here and talking to you about, all things tech and everything in between.
Absolutely. So I think the one thing I always love is finding common ground and how we can relate. And so we both are from the Midwest and we ended up in Los Angeles. Tell us more about that. Like, where are you from in Michigan? Why would you come to Los Angeles?
So my question for you is, why'd you assume Michigan?
I will admit I am a fan, and if you haven't, I'm going to give him a plug. Silicon Valley on TikTok, an incredible Twitter following, and he has such great content around self-development, professional development, being your best version of yourself. And I appreciate your honesty and authenticity, but I know you're a huge Michigan State fan. So I went to high school 1 year in Ann Arbor. I am a Wolverine fan. I apologize. So go blue, not go green. Sadly, I never got offered to play hockey or baseball as I grew up. I wanted to be a Wolverine. Didn't happen. But I have to be loyal to my Wolves. But you're a Spartan.
Yeah.
Okay, so where in Michigan did you grow up? You stayed in Michigan for university. How did you decide to come to Los Angeles?
Yeah. So I'm from Canton, Michigan. I don't know if y'all know the Mitten. The Mitten, as those who don't know folks from Michigan, we always point to it. No matter where you're at, you could be here in the U.S. or be overseas. You're like, oh, where are you from? Like, oh, I'm from here. So I'm from Canton, Michigan, which is 30 minutes outside of Detroit. Yep. So the suburbs of Metro Detroit is where I'm from. I went to middle school and high school there, but was born on the east side of Detroit. And stayed in Detroit until I was like roughly 11 years old. And then we moved to Canton, Michigan when I was 12, and then went late middle school and then high school in Canton, Michigan.
What was the school district you went to?
Plymouth Canton Educational Park.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, so I actually was just in Michigan with one of my colleagues. We've stayed in Lansing before. We've stayed in Birmingham. We've stayed downtown Detroit. I've spent more time in Michigan than any other state other than Illinois and California, where I've lived a long time. And it's a beautiful state. And I will say, I was just there this week. It made me miss the Midwest summers. It's light till 9 o'clock. You smell the grass. It's just very nostalgic. So from what we grew up with. So after you went to Michigan State, did you decide to stay in Michigan? Did you move right away? Like, how did you evaluate career options?
Yeah. So when I was graduating from Michigan State, that was my first company. It was called Like Me. We were an
Awesome.
identity and interest-based social network that we launched on iOS. So we looked at identity was less so about like a racial or lines or gender, is more so like life stage. So it's like undergraduate student, graduate student, or working professional. We always believed that anyone, even back then, anyone who has a job is a working professional. So it wasn't specifically for white collar. So we launched that on iOS the week after I graduated from undergrad. I said economic undergrad. And my two co-founders, Brendan and Yosef, were on the technical side of things. So we all went to state together. That whole story we met at school. We launched something that was like that whole thing. So we did that. We did that for like a year and a half ish. We ran Like Me for that long after grad because we were doing it in school as well. And then closing that down because we tried to raise capital from folks in Chicago and Michigan. And the investment thesis is just fundamentally different in the Midwest than you might find in California, as you more than likely have seen as yourself. So we had to unfortunately close the business down. And then I was sitting there like, okay, no one gave me money. What can I do to make money? And something that people won't know, and this is something that you're actually going to get the first on this, is that I actually used to work at IBM.
I mean,
you can't find that online. And
didn't find that.
So I used to work at IBM in corporate finance in their office over there in Rochester, Minnesota. Yeah. Their corporate finance arms are usually in Armonk, New York, or in Rochester, Minnesota. They call it like the center of excellence.
Wow.
By trying to train folks in that. Very boring, terrible work. Terrible work. I did not like it. But I moved from Michigan to Rochester, Minnesota for that job. Because I was like, oh, if I'm going to try to raise capital, I need like brands on me. I'm like, oh, IBM recruit on my campus.
Yeah.
Let me go work for IBM. Terrible decision. Nobody ever do that. But ended up being in Minnesota and then went to DC.
So I love where we're going with this, and we're going to have so fun jumping around several places. I do want to bring light to Josh's TikTok account because you just basically alluded to it with the Midwest raising capital.
Yeah.
One of my favorite TikToks of yours is talking about, hey, if you're raising capital in the Midwest, you have to have 15 years of financial projections. Whereas if you're in California, you could have a napkin.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's a cultural difference? Is it in the education system, in the working professionals, in the politics? Like, what's the difference there? Because I definitely felt it myself as well. And I'm not here to say what's right or what's wrong because there's pros and cons of
What
both
did you see?
sides.
What did you see? Because you're from
So
Illinois.
I'm from Chicago
You're from Illinois,
originally,
right?
yep. And so I ended up coming out to SF for my first job. It was a Uber for Trucking, Dispatcher Inc. Was there briefly, ended up being acqui-hired, and we got to launch Uber Freight in Chicago. So I got to spend most of my time in Chicago. So SF was a very, I was in there for a minute, and then I ended up in Los Angeles because my MBA at UCLA. So it sounds like similar with you, your MBA at USC.
Fight on.
Yes. And we had some rivalry going on here. And then I haven't left Los Angeles since, but I even noticed today with our startup is raising capital. The California firms are a little more aggressive, progressive, and big picture thinking.
Yeah.
Whereas some other markets, they are more stuck in the balance sheet and they want to really dive into the finances. And so that's definitely something. Do you think it's just the conservatism of the Midwest values, or where do you see the difference?
Think it comes off how the classes that were built. If you think about it, like the middle class, if you think what was built on the back of skilled labor, like we do
Yes.
a trade way. So if you think about auto industry, they've been doing the same thing since the Model T came out.
Yeah.
And if
Over
you,
100 years.
and like exactly, if they say if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So why change the thing that's like made people money and stabilized families for decades and decades and decades and be more adventurous when conservatism actually is what built this in the first place?
Yep.
While here in California, risk taking is what built these things in the first place. We can even go back Northern California. People might not know this. The same dude who made Chuck E. Cheese also did what start with an A. What's the gaming company? That gaming company,
Atari.
Atari. Yeah,
Wow.
the same dude who did Chuck E. Cheese did Atari.
Brilliant founder.
Yeah, right. It's so different.
Yeah.
But it's like if you think about the gold rush back there in like the 1800s.
1849. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I think risk taking is what built a lot of what Californian wealth looked like. We're in LA. Risk taking happens in entertainment every day. Right.
Agreed. You do
Technology-
feel the dreamer mentality here. I'm sure right when I got here, that's the big thing I felt. And I will say, and I'm a huge fan of it. We're building the Netflix of education. Our goal is to have cinematic content for credit. And so obviously a huge fan of the entertainment industry. But even when we first moved to LA, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Came here, I'm like, so many people want to be actors, actresses, producers. That's admirable. That's a lot of them aren't going to make it. It's a hard career to make it, just like entrepreneurship.
Just like starting.
Like 100%. But you could, you feel that ambition. And when you're in a room of ambition, you want to be more ambitious. When
Yes.
people aren't shooting down your dreams, you want to go for your dreams. How did you feel something similar when you were here?
Yeah, so I would say like when I shifted from, I was in Michigan,
Then Minnesota, then
Minnesota.
DC.
then I was in DC. I think DC is where I felt it first. Obviously, for folks who've been around the DMV,
Yeah.
that place has a lot of, I would say, entrepreneurial energy as well. Because
Yep.
if you think about how a bill becomes a law, that starts from someone's
Yep.
mind
Yeah.
looking to create change. And aren't we all looking to create change?
Yeah.
So that's the first taste I got of it. And then when I came to LA, felt it a lot more as well from like an entertainment lens. But as you know, over the last 6-7 years, LA has grown up as a startup hub from a software and hardware perspective. Shout out to the Defense Tech. Shout out to the Gundo.
Like, Good.
Shout out to the
I think that LA, so it's the third largest venture capital startup funded area in the
Yes.
country. And I commonly say, what's so great about LA, and obviously SF is the king of capital, we have to all acknowledge that.
Yep.
But whereas New York is, a 6-hour flight away,
Yep.
LA is an hour flight away. So not only do you get the aspects of the entertainment industry, real estate, there's a lot of huge industries here. The tech scene is third biggest in the country, but you're an hour flight away from the biggest. So it's
Exactly.
really the best of both worlds, which I really love. But I actually want to talk about Tradeway a bit because I'm such a fan of what you're doing. I'm such a believer in the trades. I think that the trades are going to move up in interest and, willingness to pay over the next 2 decades by
Mhm.
far. And, honestly, fan of what you're doing. I'm also a huge fan of college and going to the top college as possible. The way I like to think about it is go to the top university possible, or go directly into career via the trades. Is that how you're segmenting the market right now? Or like, how do you view it? How do you view college? Would love to hear some of your opinions on this.
Yeah. So for me, the way I look at it is like there's liberal arts education, there's trade education.
Yeah.
Trade education, and something that we like to let people know at trade education is not specifically construction trade education. Trade education is simply education that you need a specialized skill set, and you more than likely use your hands and mental energy
Yep.
to get the job done. There's trades within construction, there's trades within manufacturing, there's trades within law. Paralegals are actually
Yep.
tradesmen by trade. If you look at the world of health, medical billing is a
Yep.
trade. It's not something that you need to go to a liberal arts education in order to get the real-
1,000,000% agree.
So that's something that we're looking to do a trade ways. When people say you're good with your hand, being good with your hands doesn't mean the construction trades generally. So that's how I look at that specific liberal arts versus trade. But when it comes down to college, as you know, I went to undergrad at Michigan State, studied economics, then I went to B School at USC.
Yeah.
I'm Nigerian, so us going to like graduate schools, like kind of like, we got to kind of, oh, it's not really a choice for real.
Nigerian Americans are one of the most educated of all, correct? Isn't that like
Yes.
incredible? Was that instilled in you in your household growing up? Like education is the way, or like how was that growing up in a Nigerian household?
Yeah. So my dad is Nigerian. He's Igbo. My mom is Black American. My mom, she died in 2022.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Shout out to her, shout out to all that good stuff. But like both sides really prioritize it, and I think with going like Nigerian culturally, as you may or may not know of like Nigerian immigrants who come here, it's like medical or law or engineering, it's like things. And like in our household growing up, my dad and my mom, and speaking about Nigerian culture, my dad was always like very into academic because that's how he got here, right? My dad went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. He
Nice.
studied
Shout
industrial
out
engineering
Knowles.
there. Yeah. Well, that's
Vols.
Vols.
Wow.
We're the Vols, the volunteers.
Vols, yeah.
Yeah. So that's my southern roots there. Then he worked for all the OEMs over in Michigan. From Ford to
Yeah.
Chrysler to GM, and like that's always been a staple with us because when your family immigrates here, it's very easy to see that education is actually what got them here. If you think about visas, and I don't want to get
Yep.
political at all,
Yeah, of course.
but it's like for people like my dad to get here when he was 18, he had to get a visa.
Student visa.
For that visa, this was like back in the 1970s, right? Like, it's not great for us now, but it's like not great in the 1970s. And it's like the only reason he got that is because he was really killing it academically. He wanted to come here, study engineering, and look like a value add for the U.S. And it's like without education, so much immigration wouldn't even happen.
Yeah, I love that perspective, and shout out your parents. They've raised an incredible, young man, founder, leader, thought leader, really, and it's been incredible to learn from you and listen to you. And so, one part of your background I doubt you get asked about a lot, but I was fascinated in, you spent time at U.S. News
I did.
and World Report, and so this is a
I've never been asked that.
yeah, as I assume to say, coming at you from different angles. So, I am a huge fan of U.S. News. I know it's a very hot topic, and nothing's fair in life. Education's not fair, rankings are not fair, but they do help someone who's not in this space learn more quickly. And so I commonly say to young people, and this is by no means perfect advice, but something that I really say, hey, you want a simplistic advice possible? Go to U.S. News, apply to the best colleges you can, see where you get in, and be able to go somewhere that you're able to see yourself living.
Can I
after
ask you a
school.
question?
Yeah.
How do you define best college?
I love this. It's good. Put it at the table on me. So that is a very arbitrary number, but it's more so, I guess I'm saying, what does U.S. News define as the best college? Apply to colleges that you want to go to, and then look to U.S. News to get the validation and say, where did they put those schools? I don't think, and I actually think I quote tweeted something that you said, I don't think you need to go to the top school. It was about the lawyers, the top.
Yes,
and
I remember that.
I loved it. You don't need to go to number. I think it's great if you can.
This is
I
like
mean,
the GCs of Fortune
yes,
500
which
companies,
was
top
so,
10.
and they were all like over 20 million a
Yes,
year.
exactly.
And all these lawyers, surprisingly, none of them, or only one of them, went to Yale, which is the top law school,
Definitely
pretty
a T14.
consensus.
Definitely a T14.
But yeah, they're all top 14, and I think I even said in the quote tweet top 50 how big
You
a
did say
difference it
that.
makes. Thinking about USC, UCLA, they're not the number one business school, but they're very consensusly considered top 50 and probably top 25 or top
Like obviously
20.
Marshall's greater than Anderson.
Right now, Marshall is ranked higher, and I know our Anderson leadership and my Anderson classmates are a little upset about that, but Marshall's an amazing school, and USC, the network, and that's the thing too, like, even that, like, a UCLA fan, just because I went there, and USC is our bitter rival, but, like, USC, what a great school. The network, the Trojan network, I would put it in the top 5 networks in the country in terms of how loyal they are, how much they fight for their, fellow alumni to get great jobs and careers, and so, like, that's where I
We
talk
drink
about
a
how
lot of Kool-Aid.
yeah. Yeah, but they're bringing you together, and that's why I think so important. Look at US News. I think USC for undergrad is
Top
like top 20.
23.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it's top 25 for sure, maybe even top 20. Like if you could go to a school like that, how much that can help as a signaling device. By no means am I saying that you have to go to Harvard to be successful, but if you can go to Harvard, it can really make a big difference signaling. I don't make the rules, but I just make sure that we encourage our learners to say, hey, go where you can have a signal. I mean, I think about even you. Michigan State's an incredible school. You have a great signal in the Midwest, but your USC brand probably helps you more with venture capital than Michigan State. I don't know, though. Why don't you correct me?
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because I would say when it came down to when I was not founding, I do think educational pedigree was top. Like the reason I got to do all the things that I did in undergrad, like, before tech, I actually wanted to work in retail.
Very
So
cool.
I actually interned at Macy's. I was in their store, and then I was at Target, their headquarters in their merchandise planning
Yeah,
department.
Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I was in
yeah,
and all around the Midwest.
yeah.
I love the Midwest.
I do too. I love it. I'm loyal to the Midwest.
Yeah,
I
keep
think
going
that
back.
you raise great people, and I love going back. And I'm telling you, those Midwest summers, very
The
nostalgic.
Midwest, good. So it's like when I had done that, I did all that kind of stuff. But I would say Michigan State is like where I built my first company, right?
Yep.
It's the first time I talked to a VC. I think there's this thing about like should you go to an Ivy League or go to like a public flagship? Like there's that conversation happening now, which I know you're definitely aware of and all that. It's like I do believe that you gotta weigh those things. But like for me, when it came down to VC, like candidly, it was more off of like where I worked versus where I went to school. I think if I was trying to build in the Midwest, Michigan State would have been great to try to raise from like Michigan, Chicago if I stayed there for longer. But I do say here at SC, I got deeper into the LA startup ecosystem, which helped. Honestly, I've never gotten $1 from an LA VC.
I like the perspective here. Let's keep going on this. I actually really enjoy this conversation, where this headed. So completely agree with you. I'd say for myself that Uber has done more for me in terms of raising capital than both UCLA and Penn. By far, Uber has been by far and away.
And even I was going to ask you about that Penn for real.
I love Penn, and I had a great experience there. But Uber, our partner Kleiner Perkins, she worked at Uber. We didn't know each other there, but that's how we got connected. Really lucky to have that opportunity. A lot of the first employees here from Uber. We have Emil Michael, shout out him, incredible leader, chief business officer at Uber. He's one of our investors. Like a lot of Uber blood in our company. Carmen Ventures are the Uber alumni syndicate. So thankful for them. But do you get the Uber or do you get the TikTok job from said school? Like, do you think USC potentially helped you get some of these tech jobs? Do I think Penn or UCLA helped me get some of these tech jobs? That's a question. Yeah, well said.
It's like you never really know, because I think resumes are stories, right?
Yeah,
And you
it's all
never-
storytelling is the most important skill.
Exactly.
Agreed.
And you never know what part of your story most resonates. Like for me to get my first product job, even though I built Like Me, launched on iOS, we had thousands of users, my boss actually cared most about the Fortune 500 experience.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, if you know physical products, you understand digital products. Yeah, I kind of launched an iOS app. We got in the App Store, we're like growing. We were in Cosmo,
Yeah.
Self Magazine,
Nice.
and USA Today College before I graduated from
That's
undergrad.
amazing.
And I wish to tell the video. They came and interviewed me in my apartment. Terrible, terrible couch. The couch is like torn up, but it's not. But no, that's kind of how I looked at that. Yeah.
No, so education, job, signals, there's so many opportunities to put yourself out there. But I think you actually hit the nail on the head the most. Storytelling.
Yes.
Storytelling, and shout out to late Kobe Bryant. We have Kobe all over our office because we're an LA-based company. We love the Mamba mentality, outwork anybody, be focused, be, a Mamba, be a Mamba. He started a company after he retired, all about storytelling and the art of storytelling. That's how, you sell, you recruit, you inspire, you make friends. Storytelling's so powerful. How did you get so good at storytelling? Clearly you're amazing. You have, over 25,000 followers on Twitter, over 15,000 followers on TikTok. You're clearly an incredible storyteller. How would you advise a young person to get better at that?
Yeah. Excuse me. I'll say the way that I got into it, because I grew up in the arts. So I played trombone and percussion growing up. So I was not great at trombone. I started that when I was in 3rd grade. Played it for 4 years until I got to 7th grade. Wasn't great at it. I was like 3rd or 4th chair. So I was like, I need to get out of this because I'm just not good. So I ended up playing percussion, and at that same time, I'm going inching towards high school. Then started acting in plays in high school. But while I was playing the trombone, I actually wrote music. So I did music. Music is actually my first thing I really, really wanted to do before retail, before tech. I wanted to, at this time, I would have owned a multi-genre record label similar to RCA, Geffen, or Interscope. That's what I wanted to do. So I was like 9 years old. But ended up just like not doing that, obviously, because we're talking about the Treyway and all the tech that we're doing now. But that's really how I got good at storytelling. Because like since a young age, I wrote music, and I do think sheet music also can tell a story. It can make you feel something. So that's why I felt from trombone and percussion. And then obviously in stage plays, we're telling the story via the script that we were given from the screen and things of that nature. Did that. I made some like comedy videos early in college. Didn't really take it seriously because I was still doing music. And over the pandemic was like, hey, I've been doing stuff anyway. I need a hobby. Let me hop on TikTok while I'm working at TikTok to then make videos.
Well, so I love what you just mentioned the music background. And, for me, it's sports. I was an athlete my whole life. So passionate about sports. I think sports teaches
What'd you play?
Played hockey and baseball.
Ah.
So I played on the USA under-18 hockey team. That's why I lived in Ann Arbor for a year. So I'm from Chicago,
Well,
but
you were like good.
I was above average. I'm a has-been now. I'm retired now, so I was like committed to Ohio State for hockey. I know it's wild, but ended up doing baseball at Penn, and I did a grad transfer just before the transfer portal. I wish they would have had that when I was playing. So I did a
Bro,
grad.
NIL, you could have made
I know I would, and I've been scrapping like that. I did 1 year at Purdue as an MBA student playing baseball, and so that was a really great experience. But I think it's so important, especially when we talk about education. You can learn so much through classes and online and such, but you need to have extracurriculars.
100%.
When you're a young person, get involved with music, get involved with the arts, get involved with sports, the creative lenses that you can be able to learn, the resiliency, the teamwork. It's so important, and so that's why we're so
I
passionate.
did track and field.
Yes.
I started running
Love
track in
that.
7th grade.
So see, like, think about that, how that shaped you as a person.
I did the open 2, the 4x2, and long jump.
Those are some tough events.
So I was doing that. The 400 is actually the toughest one.
Yeah, the 400 is brutal.
So when you did baseball and hockey, did they make y'all run track to stay in shape?
So I always joke. So now I'm trying to be one of those obnoxious adults and transfer my way into the marathon space. I have a long way to go. But I never ran growing up because hockey, you're skating obviously, and
Yes.
it's all short spurts. Your shifts are anywhere from 30 to 50 seconds. And then baseball, similarly, the longest you're running is an inside the park home run, probably not happening.
Yeah.
Doubles and triples, you're not really running that much long distance. So I always have such respect for the track athletes because the part that we hated the most in practice is your full practice. So I'm like, how do you deal with that? That's incredible. But, sports taught me so much. I owe so much to sports. Sports is what, got me into Penn. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. I know that's another hot topic, athletes getting into schools through sports. I'm gracious for it. LeBron was someone that really spoke to me growing up. I was a huge LeBron fan, especially when he was on the Heat.
Right.
And so he always said, obviously for me, it wasn't to make hundreds of millions of dollars through sports, but this hit me home so much to use sports as a tool to a better life.
I like that.
And when I saw that from LeBron, I was like, okay, I'm going to use sports to get into the best school I can possibly get into and figure it out from there. And so I was really overwhelmed at Penn. And it challenged me like
In
none
what way?
other. So, and this is one of the largest reasons why we started Subject. My co-founder, he went to Harvard. He's from inner city LA, LAUSD. I'm from suburbs of Chicago, but I was the first person from my hometown to go to Ivy League school. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I actually went from community college to Ivy League. So I was at junior college, huge fan of community college. I think more young people should take that route. It's such a great option. But we both felt very overwhelmed. These students who are lucky enough to go to New England prep schools or really rigorous backgrounds, they come
over
in.
Exeter.
Yeah, it's a great one. Well, so get this, Harvard Westlake in LA, incredible school.
Shout out to Westlake.
Yeah, I think it's about $55,000 a year, which, not everyone has to be able to access. I know we didn't have that. You were able to go to Harvard at better than any other chance in the world. I think they had 18 kids last year. They're the largest feeder school to Harvard College, Harvard undergrad in the entire world.
Westlake?
Harvard Westlake. Yes, isn't that a wild stat? So think about that. So think about going to an Ivy League school and you're competing with these students who are in a really rigorous setting. You have 18 classmates who are also going to Harvard. You're dealing with some really, really competitive, driven, successful students. Whereas if you're in a school, and we talk about the ambition piece, if you're in a school where, not everyone is going for that shot, which there's nothing wrong with, you're going to be a little shell-shocked when you get on campus. So for me, it was a big learning curve, and that really made me step out of my comfort zone. But I still think to this day, the hockey experience in Ann Arbor was more challenging, more rigorous, and challenged me even more than Penn. And so again, I'm so thankful to sports.
What's the most challenging part about it?
So yeah, I love your question. It's good. I love it. You got to host a podcast. When you do, I'm coming on yours. I promise you, I'll be your first guest. So the biggest challenge for me was moving away from home in high school. It was really hard. My dad came with me. So thankful for him. We got a small condo in Ann Arbor, and we lived together. But it was middle school year, new school, new friends, very different culturally. And so to be at that young age, I was junior in high school, and then the USA program, in theory, to me, even more accentuated than Penn, because Penn, incredible school, but it's 10,000 undergrads. USA program's only 20 juniors and 20 seniors in the entire country. So it's the very tip top. Over 40 of those kids in the program were able to go play at least one NHL game when I was there. So a lot of kids that I play with are still in the playoffs today. So I can't wait to watch the games tonight. But that being around the best and, feeling like that imposter syndrome, I think it's really powerful. And, imposter syndrome, I'm sure, is something that you have a take on. I think when you step into that zone and feel like you may be in a situation that overwhelms you, that's how you really have your back against the wall and get the best out of yourself. Yeah. So what do you think, as we are able to wrap this up, I think the biggest thing that I would love to ask and, be able to be a plug for your company is, how can we get more people to your company? How can we push more customers your way? How can we be helpful to you?
Yeah, I think the most helpful thing is education is much broader than what you do in the classroom. Education is the communities in which we live. Education are the conversations that we, and yes, education are the books that people are into. Like what we do at Tradeway, and I'm glad we do this. We're looking to connect folks to work opportunities, guidance, and knowledge development in the world of construction trades. And when people think of construction trades, they think like, oh, you need to know how to use certain tools. But you can't use your hands until you can use your mind, right?
Yes.
You can't use your hands until you can use your mind. It all starts from thoughts. So the thing that I would like folks to know is that if you're looking to be in the world of the construction trades, auto trades, manufacturing, medical, what have you, so much of the work is up here versus down here with your hands. Because people try to do the delineation between liberal arts education and trades education. Like liberal arts is more mind, trades is more hand, trades is mind and hand. And I think that's the thing that I would like people to know. And if you are on the internet, tradesarethe.way.com. We're running, we launched here in Los Angeles. We are going to the rest of Southern California in the next month here. So I just want people to know is that, working trade education is still education. It's education of the mind and not only the hand.
Tradesarethe.way.com. By the time you hear this episode, he'll be in all throughout Southern California. We are so excited to support him. And the final question I have, as a Big Ten fan and now a double Big Ten person, because USC, who are you rooting for in the game? USC, Michigan State, when they play each other, who are you going for?
Depends on the sport.
You're not doing a split jersey, are you?
Which sport are we talking about?
Let's go with football. It's the closest to football season.
Football, SC, Michigan State basketball.
Okay, that's fair. We got some cherry picking going on here.
I went to Michigan. The reason I actually really got into Michigan State, like as a fan, was because, like, this is the thing that happens in Michigan. It's very Midwest lore, Michigan lore. It's like you choose a school very soon.
Oh yeah.
Like you're like, oh, you're a Michigan State fan or Michigan fan.
Green or blue.
Exactly. It's like,
only colors.
And people are also like that with cars. It's like, we're the auto. So it's like you're a Ford family, you're a GM family. Like this is what we drive. This is where we go to school. This is what we do. It's very Midwest, as you know.
Yeah.
So it's like that. But like Michigan State basketball, because that's the reason I wanted to go to state. Shout out to Izzo.
Yeah,
shout out to Izzo's kid for scoring.
That was cool.
So shout out to Izzo's kid. Shout out for baby Izzo. And then for football, definitely SC, just because Michigan State has never really been that strong at it. So yeah.
That's fair. Well, hey, you heard it here first. Can't believe I'm going to say it. Go green. Fight on. I'm sick to my stomach saying that stuff. But
what's the Bruin thing? What do y'all say?
It's probably even worse, but it's UCLA.
Oh, wait. Y'all really do that for real? I think.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. When he launches this podcast, I'm his first guest. And welcome back to On the Subject. We can't wait to be able to do another episode soon. Thanks so much for your time, Josh.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.